Today we're talking about physics, so I went ahead and made this marble world. My starting point today is this Create with VR 2021 LTS from the VR development pathway, and I'm using the Kenny.nl marble 3D model assets, which is really awesome. So that's how I built the marble world. Quick little tip, if you're going to build your own marble world, I use the OBJs that are imported here. And when you're doing this, I recommend you set this to global, turn the grid snapping on, and I set this to 0.025. That way when I'm moving things around, they line up much nicer, and it makes it a lot easier. As far as the marbles themselves go, these are all 1 in mass, 2, 5, and 20 in mass. And then this is the dynamic friction, static friction, and bounce. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we go to this first marble here, I have on it a sphere collider, but I also have a physics material. It's not a visible material like the color here. It's how does it react to other objects it collides with. So if I open that up, you have dynamic friction, which is how much friction is there while it's already moving. Static is how much friction is there while it's at rest, not moving. And bounciness is a level from 0 to 1, which is just what it sounds like. And I have all these set to average because that's a lot of different variables. So I just left it at using these different variables so we could play with those and drop these onto the track. Now when it comes to the actual marble itself and how it moves around, the rigid body here, like I said, these have a mass of 1 for this color, and the angular drags seem to have more of an effect than the other frictions. So I left these all at 0.01, but we'll see what happens when we jack that number all over the place. Gravity is exactly what it sounds like. If is kinematic is checkmarked, so if I were to do this, this thing would basically float in air, but I could throw things at it and it would bounce off of it. So in other words, it reacts to other objects hitting it, but you basically have to either move it with code or you can run other things into it. So I'm going to leave that off and leave it as using gravity because they're marbles. And the collision detection I have as discrete. If they start falling through the floor, you can set it to continuous dynamic, which is a little more expensive as far as GPU calculations go. So I'm going to leave it at this for now, and that seemed to work pretty well. And every marble has a grab interactable on it. So let's play around a little bit in play mode and see what we can do with these marbles. So here we are in VR. You can see the stats of the different marbles there. And so this very first one has a mass of 1 with those friction settings and bounce settings. So there's almost no bounce at all, but we can kind of give it a toss there. And it rolls pretty well down the marble track. Looks great. They don't always make it to the bottom. Sometimes they get stuck right there. It's not the best design I've ever made. This next one here is the same, except for the bounce is a little different, which didn't seem to really bounce that much because I don't have a physics material on the track itself. So if I were to put a collider with a physics material that's set to bounce, it would bounce a lot more there. They just bounce a little bit, you can tell, but they're all set to 1 on the bounce. There wasn't a whole lot of difference with each one of these as far as the dynamic and static friction go, and I got more resistance if we were to up the angular drag. So let's try that. So just for fun, let's mess with several different settings. I selected all 5 of these that are in the 4th tray there, and I'm going to mess with the angular drag. So I'm going to set that to 1, so we'll see what effect that has. And with these 5, I'm going to also set the angular drag to 1, but I'm also going to mess with its physics material and set the friction to multiply and bounce to multiply. So let's see what that does. So here we are. Here's the ones with the high angular drag. Didn't seem to do a whole lot. Yeah, it might come to a stop on there. Yeah, it's a lot more resistant to going down the track. it likes to slow down more because of the angular drag. In other words, as it rotates, it acts like there's a friction on that rotation. Let's set this to minimum on the last set right here. And this angular drag here, let's go ahead and move that even higher. Let's make that like 10. Okay. There, that angular drag of 10 makes it come to a stop right there on the track. So it's kind of expected though. Oops. Here's one with got a little bounce to it. But the thing it's bouncing against, it doesn't have any physics material on that. So I'm going to throw one physics material also on this one piece, and then let these high bounce ones that's going to multiply the bounce of this times the bounce of this one opening piece, and you'll see what happens. So here, I'm just going to select this one piece, and inside of that is its mesh collider. It has no physics material, but we're going to drop this one on it, because remember, this is the one that we set the bounce combine to be multiply, and I'm going to set the friction way down just for this test and see what happens. There we go. If I drop it on there, way too bouncy, so that would create a real problem. If it hits the edges, it seems to negate it kind of, but there it goes. Whoa. It's getting higher and higher like flubber. And last but not least is we can make a little Rube Goldberg type machine here by making each one of these pieces kinematic, which means I can pick them up, and when I let go of them, they're just going to float in midair, but they still will let things bounce off of them, or in the case of marbles, marbles will roll down them. I also turned off on the XR Origin the snap turn provider, because it's easier to rotate the pieces and move them into position where I want them. So let's see what you can do with that. Okay, here we are in VR with these kinematic marble pieces, and I push on the joystick, I can rotate them left and right, etc. So what's cool is I can drop them anywhere I want and make a little, my own little ramp type thing here, which again makes it a lot easier when you can use your joystick without that snap turn, and really make a cool little own marble set. And so of course you could provide the user with a whole bunch of different things, different pieces, and hey, well, they got stuck, but you get the idea. It's quite fun, and students have a lot of fun with this, and hopefully this helps somebody to understand collisions, physics materials, rigid bodies, and making a Rube Goldberg machine with the marble track from Kenny. So hope this helps somebody. Thanks for watching.